Hello everyone, it's Matt here and welcome to the May 2020 vlog. Now there's a lot to cover. The last one was in March, I believe. So obviously there's a bit to go on with, so let's start off. The first subject I'm going to talk about is Mills progress, and obviously Mills is the modular integrated landscaping system for Lego. So basically everything's divided into 8 by 8, 16 by 16 or 32 by 32 squares effectively. Obviously there's iterations of that as well, so 16 by 32, 32 by 48, 16 by 40, effectively providing it meets the modular standard, generally it's okay. Now obviously there's been a lot of progress with Mills, and it's pretty much been the only thing I've been doing the past couple of months. Partially because the original intention was to get all these Mills modules done, or at least mostly done, by July, where they'd be on show at the Black Country Brick Show. Obviously, that show is no longer going ahead. So obviously, along with everything else, there is no set time frame to get stuff ready. But obviously, while I've got the time, because events aren't happening, while I've got the ability to still get stuff in and everything else, I am still making progress. So obviously, certain things are advancing quite rapidly, like this, for example. So obviously, this is a test piece for overhead catenary wire. It's not the best one, and I'm probably not going to go with the official Lego string elements. Instead, I'm probably going to go for a clip of some description hung down by a couple of studs, what like 1 by 1 round plates, and then that would obviously then allow me to use custom wire, and then that would mean then that I'm not reliant on the Lego parts of these 31 centimetre long or 41 stud long pieces are about 1.5 euros each. They're quite expensive, and when you need quite a lot of them, that soon adds up to a price that's not really that affordable when I can just go out, well, as I would have before, gone out to a craft shop and ordered some thread in, or bought some thread. I could have then just hooked up the hooks or the modified plates or the clips or whatever I was using. I then just literally just strung the cable along. I can possibly still do that, because obviously the supermarkets are open, so I'll still go to those. But the overhead catenary is not really a priority, and this is just a test piece with the steeple cab. So obviously, the bell's bent down there. So obviously would be a nice to have, but there's other issues as well. The Lego pieces don't quite fit into the scaling, so at the moment this is actually leaning, one of these posts, depending on which way you've got them configured, will lean one way unless you have the wire not taut, because although the wire could be more taut, because it's being held together, it has this springiness that prevents it stringing correctly, so it's actually pulling the poles in. So I could move this over one, but then it doesn't look, the string itself is a little loose and floppy and doesn't look quite right. So possibly heating the string up in some hot water and maybe holding it out to stretch it a bit might be better, such as I'm doing with these. So there's a load there, but obviously you're still having the issue of it's all manual setup. I could just use some string and get away with something a lot easier and a lot cheaper as well. So obviously that's something I've got to consider. And obviously there's a lot of other things that have happened as well since the last vlog. So obviously one of the big things has been crossovers. So obviously I'll hold this over my head now so I can still see it on the screen. This is obviously some 9-volt crossovers. These have actually been modified. For those of you who've got good vision, you'll see there's a cut line there, and there's another cut line there. These are actually slightly opposite, but that does mean that the points, the turnouts actually match where the cut lines are. So if you laid this one there, the cut lines actually match up. This is actually for strength as well. So these cut lines are actually for strength. So there's a 2x6 plate here that's actually holding these together. So while this isn't to the correct mill standard, the mill standard is actually slightly different, hence why you've got gaps there and gaps there. That's actually getting fixed. This is a test piece, if you like, to see how it would look. Obviously there's a lot I can do with this to improve the ballasting. Here particularly is a main clump where it really needs attention. But yeah, these aren't looking too bad. I might just stick with these and just fill in as much as I can. But yeah, so I've got another set of this. So this is obviously your right hand turnouts. So this would be a right hand crossover over. So this would be, depending on the orientation of for me, because I'm older modelling American stuff, this would actually be classed as a trailing crossover, because obviously you're driving on the right. So obviously driving on the right. So to cross over, you'd have to be going in reverse. If this was going to be used for a British layout, for example, this would actually be a leading crossover, because you can actually, because you're approaching on the left hand track, you can actually cross over to the right hand one or continue straight ahead. You've not got to reverse. So that's effectively the main difference. I've not got the levers in. I don't see the point at the moment. This is just for testing or primary completion. And this is actually a complete module of 32 by 48. The reason for that being is that I could theoretically split it into two L-shaped modules. So you'd have the turnout and the piece of straight track. But obviously with the strength here being a bit weak, I'd sooner keep this as a 32 by 48. It keeps it nice and compact, and I can just use a 16 by 32 section at the end to make it into two 32 by 32 base plates, so that actually equals out all the spacing. Obviously then I can do other things as well. So if I wanted a line that came across here at 90 degrees, possible suggestive hint for future stuff, I could actually do that and it wouldn't impact the spacing on other modules as well. So things are getting along, and running out of parts is one of the major problems. So it's not all about track, it's primarily about track, because obviously without the track I can't really space out the other bits and pieces. So obviously you've got buildings as well. So I did say in an original video many months, if not years ago now, when I said something about not like plans for the future. One of them was to do a big station, and it was going to be using the brick bank possibly as part of the station building. Obviously that is way ahead in the future, when I've got my own house, own money, or possibly even have it as a permanent display somewhere as part of a museum or something else. Obviously nothing I've got room for now. So in that sense, I'm actually going to use it as a standard building. So obviously I don't like corners buildings very much. They're not really useful for me. So instead I'm actually just making it a straightforward standard module. So obviously you've got, this has all been milled up. So obviously this is the correct height for pavement or sidewalk, depending on what you'd want to call it. And then the building will actually just fit in the back here, hence why this bit all here is various colours, but this bit at the back is like the sand and the green. This is actually so that the building can stretch from the front pavement here all the way to the back here, with a little bit of scenery at the back. So I can possibly do like an exit door at the back or something. But yeah, you know, getting to this point takes a lot of parts as well, so obviously that again delays things. And there are some other buildings in progress, or pretty much complete, as being on your definition. This is the firehouse I'm slowly building together. So obviously this is a test piece, for example. At the moment there's still several bits that I'm slowly working out. The doors, for example, I wanted these further recessed in. These aren't the final products, obviously there's still gaps around the side. The original intention with these was to get it so that they would be recessed in like a lot of old photos, and then they'd open up. The trouble is that to get them to the point where they can open up but be recessed, is that you've got to have the arches so high that it doesn't actually make a lot of sense. So instead what I've done is I've brought the doors forward, so these are actually only half a stud in from the actual front of the building. So they do open correctly, so they're not quite perfect. The rods there on could do with anchoring in, but you can open them up like that and drive your vehicles in. This is only a 2-bay fire station. I don't really see the point of doing anything too drastic. And as I've possibly mentioned on previous posts on Instagram or something like that, because the fire engine I've built, which is the Johnny D. Peter Personson's fire pump truck, because of the length of that truck, it won't actually fit in this fire station as it would have been with that standard, if I was going to fit it to a standard 32 by 32 length. Quite conveniently, where I'd got plans for it on my exhibition layout, there's another space I can fit an extension behind it to actually fit in the extended truck. So what I'm going to do is, obviously you can sort of see it here. This is the start of the interior, where you've got this nice sort of like poured bed. Obviously this has got to go through a bit of changes. You can sort of see the wall here, and that needs to be finished off. And the whole point of it is that this will then get completed. You're going to have a nice first floor. You can sort of see the ladder stairs, I should say, leading up to that. And then this can then just be placed over as your first floor. So then you've got your ground and then your first, or if you're American, your first and then your second. So you've got your ground floor or ground level for your fire trucks, then first floor for your crew, and also then there can be a little extension out the back for the extension to the house, so you can actually fit the trucks in. The section that's going to go on the 16 by 32 at the back is not going to be very big. Effectively, it's got to fit in the trucks, possibly if I was going to use, say, bed 2 for the truck and bed 1 for vans and other things, I could possibly fit 2 vehicles in compared to just the one of the main truck. But obviously then I can space out things a bit better, possibly use just 2 vehicles, so the pump truck in 2 and something in 1, or the pump truck in 2 and something else in 1. But then I've got the extra 16 stud I can use to fit into maybe some lockers or storage or a tank or something like that, so it just completes the look a bit better. There is a specific reason why I've gone for this sort of corner design here, so you've got effectively a self-contained blob from the standard bit where just the trucks are, because this bit here can actually be used for storage, so any firefighting equipment can be stored here. So if there's a call out and there needs to be attention by the fire service, they can obviously come down these stairs, get their equipment from underneath the stairs, and then get onto the trucks and drive out. So it's trying to be arranged logically. Obviously this is supposed to be an older fire station, so obviously although my main aim is to set it something in about what I would call late 30s, 40s, possibly early 50s, depending on what you put on the track. This is actually supposed to be a fire station that was built possibly in as early as I think I've put 1904 or something like that. So basically there's supposed to be signage at the front here. Door's not anchored in. So there'd be lettering going here, for example. So this would say fire station. Obviously you start here and then fire station there, and then the year it was built here. So obviously this is a really tight gap, so I can't fit a lot of writing in there. So 190 and a digit, so possibly 1909 would actually fit in there without too much of an issue. If I wanted 1901 would fit in. So if I wanted 1912, that would fit in. It's because the digits I can't have. One's a 1 and a 9 plus a 1 and another digit work fine, but not 2 digits that require a lot of action. So I'll see if it's a 1, it's just a line. I can fit that in. That's not an issue. But anything more complex than that was an issue. And because it's mills and it's reasonably sturdy, I can actually hold it up by the archways. So obviously that's the one bit. this is another module I've been working on. This is just a 16 by 32. This is a lot smaller. You may notice certain bits and pieces of this from other modular buildings, like the gumball machine there. That's actually off the diner. The seating on the inside is from the diner, but everything else is all custom. It's all designed around Dairy Queen, so obviously you've got the nice dairy and then Queen there. Obviously this is not as per standard 1940s Dairy Queen design. Dairy Queen itself is actually came out in the 40s, so this is pretty much supposed to be either a first or second shop or restaurant or joint, if you want to use that terminology, in their franchising or something like that. So it's got to be a very early on copy of Dairy Queen. Obviously, I've extended out the lettering banner up here as well, just for aesthetic purposes, so that it all matches up. Obviously, I've still got to put down some plates and some tiling here to fill it in. There's not a lot actually to finish with the Dairy Queen module to get it complete. The biggest thing really, aside from some colour swaps like that bit there, and possibly changing that out as well, is just the lack of the interior, and some extra bits and pieces required so that the interior actually looks complete. The would-be milk churns here actually for another project, and I'll just show these off briefly. These are actually only formed of 3 parts. So you have a 2x2 round brick, a 2x2 truncated cone, and then a 2x2 tile. So if I show you these off, you can sort of see, I'll hold this up to the camera in the centre, a bit better. It's obviously not the best of looks, but you can sort of see there, that's the cone. It's sort of like a droid head. I think they use it in Star Wars a lot, and it's literally just a brick, that cone, and a plate. You could obviously go for more detailed milk churns with handles using the 2x2 round brick with the Technic axles, or the pegs, holes. The trouble with that is that if you go down that route with the handles, is that you then can't do like this, where they're all nice and together. So obviously that's one of the things I've been considering. So that's primarily why I've gone for this sort of design. You can actually fit a lot more in, even though they're not as detailed. Other than that, this is probably the most complete sort of civvy module, if you'd like. Also, there's some bits and pieces to change. I probably might change out this window as well. Possibly change it to a trans clear 2x2, 1x2x5 pillar, and then change that just to white wall. I might actually just remove that completely and just go for white wall. I might actually move up, change this pillar, put a pillar in here by the door. So obviously got a bit of thicker wall here on this dairy side. I'll fit another thicker piece here where the gumball machine is. That then moves the windows down slightly, and then that alleviates this issue of being able to see this bit of chair and it doesn't look too good from the back, which is one of the issues with the chairs. But yes, it's fully tiled on the inside. I've not put any stud 1x1 plates in there for studs, which is kind of a regret. But the trouble is obviously I don't know what I'm going to do in terms of minifigure action, whether there's going to be some servers about. I can possibly change over some of these tiles pretty easily to the 2x2 jumpers, so that with the single stud in the middle. These are going to be a bit harder. I can also just take out a trail of these that's too wide with a brick separator, not too hard, so I can pick off one of these two and then just run the separator down and it lifts them all up. So putting some here is not going to be too bad. Putting some here is obviously a bit of a pain because I've got to take out the tiles and then some wall, some of this sort of serving wall, and it's just going to be a mess. I've still got some other bits and pieces to finish mainly roof wise. But other than that, yeah, it's pretty much done as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, there are supposed to be other buildings and other bits and pieces in progress with mills, but that's obviously a bit more complex and it's a bit in the future. And to be honest with you, I want to get the current modules out of the way. And to be honest with you, I want to get all the track done. Because once I've got the track done, I could then do some test operations and work out what I need and don't need. I've got some other ideas about possibly putting in a urban power station to the one end, so that as freight trains arrive, if they've got a coal hopper on, they can just add it into the coal hopper line and disconnect it, and that coal power station actually forms part of the backdrop, so it actually takes the loaded hopper cars through, so you don't have to see them unload. So it saves on having to deal with the complex issue of trying to model an unfilled Brickmiller Railroad USRA 55-ton hopper. You can literally just leave it full. It arrives full. It goes into what would be the power plant to be emptied, but of course, because the power plant is just a access to the backdrop, it just goes in and you never see it again. And the mystery of having an unemptied hopper remains a mystery. Speaking of Brickmiller Railroad USRA hoppers, moving on. Moving on. Speaking of Brickmiller Railroad, I have a coffee. This is terrible. I'm gonna get hold already. Ugh. Speaking of brick model railroad freight cars, with the hopper, I've actually pulled out a few hoppers I've got in storage or from being stored in a few bits and pieces. So there's actually the Lehigh Valley hopper, the New Haven hopper, a black hopper which I think I've got decals for, but they're just not applied. And I've also got the Octane 20s tank car. They're all in need of attention at various points. Some of that is literally just putting on a couple of decals. I think the Lehigh Valley one is actually complete, save for the end diamonds with the number on. So once obviously I can complete some of those, they can then be taken off and put into storage, ready for their triumphant return later on. I can get on with doing some of the other bits and pieces that have been cooped up and lying about and not doing a lot. Such as the Hooker Chemicals tank car. I want to get that done. That's been pretty much blocked out and complete in terms of the body, but doing the handrails is being a bit of a nightmare, primarily because it's so different to the stock, and I want to get a nice ladder put in, even if it's not got the correct number of rungs. I do want a nice detailed ladder so it looks good. And obviously then you've also got the fact that it's got curved handrails and it's all a bit messy. And there's a lot of other bits and pieces that I've started but not done, so obviously I want to try and get some of those slightly further along and slightly more progressed. So obviously that's primarily what I've been doing, is mainly mills and maybe a few bits and pieces. So I'm now going on to a section called Coping with COVID. Obviously, when I last did a vlog in March, COVID had certainly been on the horizon and we were starting to feel the effects, but obviously that wasn't in the full thrust of lockdown. As we know, in the start of May, and it's now been about 6 weeks. It's actually not been too bad. Obviously, I work in IT in the NHS. That changed around October last year, so obviously I'm a key worker as such, so I'm not as badly affected as some others. I'm going into work alternate days, so last week it was Tuesday and Thursday. This week it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So we're all doing alternate days, and it's not too bad. The best, I'm still getting the deliveries. I mean, that's the big thing really, is that although I'm going into work, I'm still getting, deliveries of Lego parts and other bits and pieces, so that I'm not too badly impacted. I can still get on with my hobbies, but obviously there is a slight antithesis in that I can't progress with some of the projects, such as the fire station, until I get orders in containing some of the pieces I need to actually do stuff. So it is a bit of a catch-22 situation, if you like. I can get on with certain things, but only if I've got the parts, and a lot of the parts I'll need to order in. So it kind of, like, yeah, I can do that, but only if I've got XYZ, and XYZ don't exist. So, not or rather they exist, but not on in stock in the wall of elements or things like that. And going out and travelling as well is really different, because even though I need to get to work, the buses are only running once an hour on the one service I use. So I'm often finding it's easier to go into Birmingham and then back out again. So it is a bit difficult. I'm not necessarily having to spend more time travelling, but it is a bit different when I can miss a bus and there's not a bus for half an hour, when normally on that service there'd be a bus every 10 minutes, if not, less than that sometimes, depending on the frequency. So it is a bit of a big upheaval. Moving on to new projects, I've got new projects in my list, and it says RS1. So the RS1, and here it is. This has been a project that I've been progressing with very slowly. This is actually started off as being one of the bogies plus the end here. So it was just literally the bogie plus with all the side frames on plus this end piece, and then I've then sort of gone, well, actually I might as well start doing this because I've not got much else to do. I've started off blocking out as much as I can with what I've got. Obviously there's a few bits like this 2x3 brick in blue. I can swap that to black without too much of an issue. And I've been able to fill in most of this side. So this is actually the most complete side. So you can sort of see there, it's not looking too bad as an RS1. The major thing really is, aside from the miscoloured parts and the entire side that's missing this side, is the missing nose. I've still got to work out how to get power into the trucks. So obviously, if I tip this upside down, that brick's not going to fall off, is it? No. So obviously the cable coming out of these bogies is actually held in by this 1x8 tile that holds the bogie sides on. And I've still got to find a way of getting them inside the actual body to actually get power and that sort of thing. So at the moment they're just cutting off this and going into this unfilled side. So one of the things I was thinking of, and I've actually ordered one, is actually fitting the RS1 with a Loco-Fi module. So that again is something I need to do a hole for, because that's got a speaker. So that speaker would possibly need to be coming out and be taped in underneath. So obviously I need to find a way of doing that as well. So that would fit in the long bonnet here. And there is actually a good reason for modelling this or putting Loco-Fi in this, because this one, Loco, is not actually going to have a standard battery box in it. It's one of the big issues I've got, is that this body, although it's 5 wide and I could fit in a battery box in here, I don't really see the requirement for me to use a battery box in this Loco at this time. So what I'm actually going to do is utilise time I could spend better actually just soldering together some 9V PP3 connectors, and possibly using some 9V PP3 rechargeable batteries, and then sticking them, possibly depending on how I do this, making a section of the long hood removable and just fitting them in there, so I can pull out, if you like, a little harness with the batteries and the connectors on, take the connectors off and swap the batteries for a spare set or something, and then put it all together and off it goes. There's obviously several bits missing with it. Obviously you're missing the short nose, you've got the steps are missing. That's actually intentional. I'll need to work out what parts I need to order for those. Other than that, it's not too bad a model. It's certainly getting on. I do need a bit of an investigation into how I'm going to do the grills, because all along here was actually doors with grills in, and obviously that's an issue I need to have a look into as well. But it's getting on. There's not going to be a few. There's going to be a few hiccups with this model, but it's looking reasonably good. I'm going to fit it with train phone equipment, or I'm intending to fit it with train phone equipment. The issue I've got is if I fit it with train phone equipment, I can't then use it on my layout because that's got overhead catenary. So I would either have to lose the stuff I've got, or make it two tone so I can use this but not the other electrics. And yeah, so what I might do is finish this as it is, finish it without the train phone equipment, because I've got the design bits for it, so I can just literally just fill these in, and with other bits and pieces that's not too much of an issue, and just go back to how it would be without the train phone equipment for now, and then retrofit it at a later date along with the Pensy caboose, which is up there, just about there where my finger's pointing. I can obviously fit that with the train phone equipment, fit this with the train phone equipment, and then I've got a train phone train. Hey. But that's not a high priority, and to be honest with you, I'll just soon get the body blocked out and everything fitted and working, because obviously I'll need to solder it, and getting everything fitted and working before doing anything fancy like that. So that's pretty much it as far as I'm concerned for any news and updates. Obviously, if you've got any questions, do put them in the comments. Or if you want to, send me a message on Instagram or Facebook. I prefer Facebook. Facebook's a lot easier to manage rather than Instagram. But yeah, that's it effectively for the May update. Anything you've got to question me on, I'm more than happy to answer to an extent, provided it's something I know of. But that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next vlog, whenever that is. I imagine, due to the way things are happening and the lack of news, I'll possibly revert this to a bi-monthly sort of thing. So obviously I did one in March, I've done one in May, so possibly July. Who knows, the world might be a different place by then. But that's it for now, and see you later.